When you think about the Indian railways, you probably picture trains, tracks, and stations. But have you ever wondered who manages the millions of people that make it all happen? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a super important but often overlooked part of this giant system, the personnel branch. This is the team that keeps the human engine of the railways running smoothly.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with the basics. Why does this department even need to exist? Then we'll get into its core functions and the philosophy behind what they do. After that, and this is huge for anyone studying for exams, we'll break down 2 key career paths. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the human element that's at the very heart of it all.
Right, so it's so easy to forget that the railways aren't just a transportation network. They're basically a massive moving city, employing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And managing that huge workforce from the moment they're hired to the day they retire is just a monumental task. It absolutely needs its own specialized department.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? What do they actually do all day? It's so much more than just shuffling papers. This branch is the literal backbone of the organization's entire human resource system. So let's dig in and see why it's so crucial for keeping the Indian Railways on track.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. To really get what the personnel branch is all about, we have to ask a fundamental question. Why was it created in the first place? What problem is it really here to solve?
Well, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. The personnel branch exists to be a problem solver. Think of it like a bridge. On one side, you have the massive railway administration, and on the other, you have every single employee. This branch stands right in the middle, handling all the human challenges to make sure the whole system just works. Okay, so we've got the why. Now, let's zoom in on the what. What does a day in the life of the personnel branch actually look like? What's on their to-do list?
And wow, their scope is just enormous. They literally manage the entire life cycle of an employee. I mean, from the very beginning, creating a job and recruiting for it, all the way through training, promotions, transfers, you name it. They handle pay, talk to unions, figure out complex legal rules, and even look after staff welfare like housing and schools, right up until someone retires. It's the whole shebang.
And on top of all of that, they've got one of the trickiest jobs of all, legal compliance. The railways have to operate inside this dense web of national labor laws, so the personnel branch acts as the guardian, making sure every single part of the organization is following the rules, from how disputes are handled to how wages are paid out.
Now, their work isn't just a massive checklist. It's actually guided by a kind of dual philosophy. You can really break it down into 2 main approaches: the big picture, high-level strategy, and the boots on the ground, daily support.
And this contrast is so important to understand. On one hand, you have personnel management. That's the 30,000-foot view, planning the workforce, setting up promotion systems, and managing salaries to build a disciplined, efficient team. But then, on the other hand, you have personnel supervision, which is all about the day-to-day human stuff, boosting morale, figuring out what workers need, and explaining policies in a way that actually motivates people. All right, now for a section that I know many of you are waiting for. If you're studying for your exams or just planning a career in the railways, you're going to want to pay close attention. We're about to break down the promotion channels inside the ministerial cadre of the personnel department. So, let's look at that first step up the ladder, from junior clerk to senior clerk. As you can see, there are 3 main ways to get there. The biggest slice of the pie, almost 67%, is reserved for promoting people from within. Then, 20% of the spots are for direct hires, and the last 13% or so are filled through a special internal exam, the LDCE.
So what does that actually mean? Well, that main promotion path is based on a combination of your seniority and how suitable you are for the job. That competitive exam, the LDCE, that's an option specifically for junior clerks who already have a degree. And finally, the direct recruitment piece is handled by the Railway Recruitment Board.
Okay, moving up to the next level. Senior clerk to office superintendent. Now notice how the path gets even more focused on internal talent. A huge 80% of these jobs are filled by promoting from within.
And the requirements here get a bit more specific, really rewarding people who have put in the time. That big 80% chunk is for senior clerks, again based on seniority and suitability. The other 20% is a general selection for graduate staff who have a good amount of service under their belt.
And then we get to the top of this particular ladder. And check this out, the path becomes totally clear. To become a chief office superintendent, it's 100% promotion from the ranks of office superintendents.
This final step is all about rewarding that long-term dedication and performance.
Okay, let's switch tracks for a minute and look at another really important career path in the personnel department. This is the Staff and Welfare Inspector Cadre, or S&W for short.
What's really interesting about getting into the SNWI role is how balanced the approach is. Exactly half the positions come from promotion, a pretty big 35% come from that departmental competitive exam, and the last 15% are open for direct recruitment from the outside.
This is a really key point. This role brings in people from all over. The promotion part is for senior clerks who are already in the personnel department, but the LDCE is open to staff from any department as long as they've got the right qualifications, and of course, there's always the path for people coming in fresh.
And as you move up to become a chief SNMI, you see that familiar pattern again, right? The focus shifts heavily back to promoting experienced people from within the cadre. 80% of these senior jobs are filled through promotion, and 20% are up for grabs through a competitive exam.
So what this shows is a really clear ladder to climb once you're in the SNWI cadre. The main way to move up is through seniority and being good at your job. But there's also that competitive track, the LDCE, for graduate inspectors who've been in the role for at least 2 years.
So after digging through all those rules, all the quotas, all the career ladders, it's so important to just take a step back and remember what this is all really about. It's not just about charts and processes, it's about people. This quote, and this comes directly from the official manual, really gets to the very core of the mission. Forget all the administrative tasks for a second. The real job of a personnel officer is to be a protector of employee welfare. It's their responsibility to make sure workers are heard and their interests are looked after. That's the real key to a happy, motivated workforce.
And that leaves us with one final thing to think about. In a job that is so complex, what do you think is the single most important skill to have? Is it knowing all the rules inside and out? Is it having incredible empathy for the workers? Or is it that special, rare ability to perfectly balance the needs of the administration with the needs of its people?